Hi, this is Dr. Derek Taylor, and you've joined us for our How to Handle COVID-19 webinar. Um, First, I'd like to give a little disclaimer. This is not intended for medical advice. This is not to be used to self-diagnose, or this is purely my opinion that I'm sharing here with in regards to the COVID-19 situation. And just right off the bat, if you are a proponent of mainstream media and believe everything that they're telling you, this webinar is probably not going to be for you. So you may want to just click out right now if that's the case, because I'm going to share some information today that is going to be contrary to what you're hearing on the news. So let's jump right in. So why am I addressing the COVID-19 issue? Well, people are living in unhealthy fear and panic over COVID-19. You can cut the air with a knife. And this is unhealthy as immune systems are being weakened with this fear and panic. And my goal is to help alleviate people's fears with insights I've gained as a natural healthcare practitioner over the past 27 years. Now, who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not giving you any pharmaceutical advice. I've been a practicing chiropractor for the past 27 years. I developed my own unique approach to helping patients called the Taylor method. And I want to help others by passing on the knowledge I've learned through the years of study, research, and clinical application so you can help yourself and loved ones. So let's jump right in. What are you going to learn today? Well, what you need to know about COVID-19. Secondly, what the media is failing to mention about the fatalities. And number three, what plan of attack do you need to implement that will protect you and your family? I'm going to try to keep this webinar under 45 minutes, so hang on, let's go for a ride. Number one, what you need to know about COVID-19. Well, just according to the CDC, human coronaviruses first identified in the mid-60s. They were named for their crown-like spikes on their surface. And according to the CDC, this is back in February 15, 2020, it said sometimes coronaviruses that infect animals can evolve and make people sick and become a new human coronavirus, such as these examples, SARS, MERS, and COVID-19. Well, that's their opinion. They believe it was resulted from an evolution from animals. I disagree with that. There's so much insight now that things that lead us to believe that this was made in a bioweapon, biosafety level 4 facility where they're using it to make bioweapons. And we can see this here from Francis Boyle. You can see this site here below. You want to check that out. He believes that it was set up as to research the coronavirus and SARS, using it as a bioweapon, and it was designed. It's a chimera, which is a hybrid of HIV, some other bacteria, and some other, just a mixture that was a mixture of different functions, and it's designed with the so-called gain of function property that allows it to spread a greater distance than normal. And this is why I believe it was manufactured, because of this property, in which we'll talk about in just a bit. There's another person that you may want to check this out. Take a picture of this. Dr. Rashid Buttar came across this recently. He has a very interesting, he thinks it came even beyond Wuhan, China, that it started here in the United States. And you can go to YouTube and check out what he has to say about it. It's pretty interesting what he has to say. Anyway, how long does a virus stay alive on the surfaces? Well, common cold and flu lasts several hours. COVID-19, few hours to several days on surfaces. And so, and they say several hours in the air under experimental conditions, but none of that's been proven in actual real-world circumstances. But it stays alive longer, which is ties in with the whole gain of function property here. Now, people are worried, hey, can they get this from a package? You get it from China, UPS? Well, according to the CDC and the WebMD, it's very low risk, so don't worry too much about that in regards to getting it from a package. Now, let's look at COVID-19 and see how fatal it is. Well, compared to SARS and MERS, SARS is a 10% mortality rate, MERS 35% mortality rate, and COVID-19 a 1% in the United States and 4% worldwide. Now, it's spread to more countries and all, but look at the mortality rate as far as the fatalities. So much less compared to these other coronaviruses, SARS and MERS, and yet we are closing down everything because of this COVID-19. Now, let's look at COVID-19 versus the flu. Compare these two closely. If you look at, sometimes people get sick, patients come in, they have these symptoms. Do I have COVID-19? Do I have the flu, the cold? Well, here's the basic three, symptoms from COVID-19. If you look in the blue screen here, fever, cough, shortness of breath, and severe cases. Fever, cough, shortness of breath, and severe cases. If you look at influenza and cold, a lot more symptoms. Influenza, much more abrupt. It's much more, your whole body feels achy. The symptoms are more severe, and it's caused more deaths. COVID-19, the symptoms are relatively mild, except for, sometimes it'll affect those that are severely immunocompromised. But so does influenza and even the cold. So here we have it here. Those are the three major symptoms, but the symptomatology is mild. Also, influenza just affects about everybody, including children and pregnant women. COVID-19, according to the World Health Organization, CDC, basically people over 65 with severe underlying immunocompromised conditions. Young adults, children not at high risk, no evidence of high risk for pregnant women either. Now understand that those are over 65 and see severe underlying conditions, they're going to also be prone to the flu. These people are dying from influenza as well. And this has been the case for years, yet why weren't we shutting everything down back then, just with regards to the influenza? So here COVID-19 comes in, and what are we going to do? We're going to shut down the entire nation every flu season for 4 months because of people worrying about spreading germs to those who are over 65 and severely compromised. So anyway, the point here is that influenza affects just about everybody. COVID-19 does not. Now, some of you may be saying, well, that's not what I read and saw in the news the other day. I saw a teenage boy die, or I saw this little baby die, or I saw this person. This person is a young person. They died from COVID. Well, we're going to talk about that later. Don't believe everything you read and hear and see in the media, because they are not telling the truth. It's deceiving, in my opinion, and they have an agenda, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit. So anyway, influenza stats in the U.S. here just over the past 4 months. This flu season in the U.S., 39 million flu illnesses, 24,000 deaths from the flu. 39 million people infected, 24,000 deaths from the flu in comparison to COVID-19. As of yesterday, March 27th, 85,356 cases of COVID-19, 1,246 total deaths, and data includes both confirmed and presumptive positive cases of COVID-19. Understand that just about everybody that's coming into the hospitals now that have a virus that are dying are being presumed to be COVID-19. This is why it's quote-unquote spreading and affecting so many people. These test results are skewed. The stats are skewed. And this is an agenda from the media that is scaring everybody. And I don't believe it. I don't believe it's accurate. And I'll tell you why in just a bit. So in summary, what do you need to know about COVID-19? Well, it lasts longer on surfaces outside the body compared to the flu and cold. However, there have been 39 million cases of the flu and 85,356 COVID cases over the past 4 months. Huge difference. The symptoms of COVID-19 are more mild than SARS, MERS, influenza, and it doesn't affect pregnant moms, children, and young adults like the flu. 24,000 deaths from the flu, 1,246 deaths from COVID-19 over the past 4 months in the United States. In fact, here's a thing that I found interesting. If you go to the UK government website, the UK government on its website announced on March 23rd that as of March 19th, 2020, COVID-19, after the public health bodies in the UK have reviewed the most up-to-date information, they have determined that it is no longer a high consequence infectious disease in the UK. In other words, they realize that this is really not all that people are calling it to be, and so they have not shut down their economies completely. And again, they see things differently here than the United States. And again, I think that's because they have an agenda here. I think that there's an agenda. Personally, my own personal opinion, the agenda is they want to eventually come up with the save the day vaccine that was going to be, they're going to want to make mandatory. It goes back to the 2020 ID thing with Microsoft and wanting us to completely get these microchips and have identifications embedded in us so that we have to have our vaccinations before we get on an airplane, before we get our driver's license and whatnot. It just goes back to world government, total control by the government and controlling people, and they're doing a really good job of it right now. Can't even go to the beach unless you'll get fined for going to the beach and going swimming. My son went to go surfing this morning. We live here in California, Redondo Beach. Couldn't even go surfing without getting fined for that. This is crazy. This is crazy. This is far greater than for something that is so mild, for them to be making such the big deal. There's another agenda. I think there's also an agenda with the 5G. We see that in Wuhan, China, a lot of those people that died, Wuhan was one of the first cities to set up 5G. Also in Washington, we saw those people die there. The 5G is so deadly, it lowers your immune system, and this is their way of getting it all in as all the people are out of school. So they're going to have to boost up the Wi-Fi and whatnot, and they're going to be installing these. And they knew that we were raising complaints about it because of the health problems, but now they have justification for installing it in. So there's my take on this situation, and I'm sticking with it. All right, number 2, what the media is failing to mention about the fatalities. In this section here, I want to talk about the actual PCR test that they use to determine COVID-19 and let you know that's unreliable. Also, the death rate primarily affects the high-risk categories that are on immunosuppressive medications, which is often the cause of death. And the conventional approach to treating COVID-19 performed in the hospitals can increase the patient's chance of getting pneumonia, which can lead to death. So let's go to the first one, the actual PCR test to determine COVID-19 is unreliable. Check this out. If you go to that site there on the bottom from the CDC, they admit that the coronavirus test is unable to rule out bacterial infection or even influenza. And they say that although the COVID-19 may show positive on the test, it may not be the cause of disease or the death. Now, there it is right there in the highlighted section. Positive test results are indicative of active infection. Positive test results indicative of active infection with COVID-19 do not rule out bacterial infection or co-infection with other viruses. What's that saying? You can have a positive test for COVID-19, but you can't rule out the fact that there may also be a bacterial infection or a co-infection with another virus, such as influenza. Influenza, we saw how many deaths that has caused. Now, it says the agent detected may not be the definite cause of disease. What do you mean by the agent detected? The agent detected, the coronavirus, right there, may not be the definite cause of disease. So, but here's the thing. Look at the next sentence. Laboratories within the United States and its territories are required to report all positive results to the appropriate public health authorities. In other words, you see some coronavirus on that, even though it may be tied in with influenza as well or some other bacterial infections cause, immediately they're going to label it as coronavirus. And so that's why we see all these cases now popping up everywhere. This test is deceiving. It's misleading, it's useless, and it's deceptive. Now, the other thing that they've never been able to prove is how much of the virus is actively replicating in the petri dish. There has to be millions and millions of a virus replicating in the body to cause illness, and the PCR test has never been proven to be able to make such a judgment call accurately. So these tests are absolutely worthless. They're useless, and yet they're relying on them. Here's the other thing too. somebody can come in, they don't have the test. What are they telling these hospital workers? Hey, you got to assume that it's COVID-19. All that. They're already labeling them even without testing. Everybody's getting labeled with that, and so that's why we're seeing this huge spike. And again, it's deceptive. This is the media's way of using more fear and scaring us here in regards to this whole COVID-19 situation here. Now, secondly, the death rate primarily affects the high-risk categories that are on immunosuppressive medications, which is often the cause of death. So, check this out. This is the high-risk people. This is from the CDC. People aged 65 and older, living in a nursing home or long-term care facility. What are these people? Usually they're on a whole handful of different medications to help with their conditions, chronic lung disease, people with serious heart conditions, people that are immunocompromised due to cancer treatments, those that are severely obese, other diseases, diabetes, renal failure, liver disease. So here's the thing. If you look at the bottom, though, it says those also on prolonged use of corticosteroids and other immune weakening medications. So this is the primary target of who COVID-19 is affecting. But guess what? The flu does the exact same thing. The influenza are killing these people here as well. And so when someone, it's unfortunate that people are dying here, those that are immunosuppressive, but influenza has been killing people in this category for decades in regards to those that are on these meds are more prone to being to dying from the virus, not the virus itself, but actually how it wreaks havoc on the body and they can't handle. They get sepsis in the blood, so this is the people that are being affected. So those that are on immunosuppressive medications. Now, what are some of these medications? Well, those that are on prolonged corticosteroid use, those that are on ACE inhibitors for blood pressure medication, you see that they have a higher risk for pneumonia. Those that are on proton pump inhibitors for heartburn, higher risk for pneumonia. Those that are inhaling corticosteroids, higher risk for pneumonia. Those on psychiatric drugs, high risk for pneumonia. You can go to PubMed and just check all this out. You can see that. Also, vaccines are immunosuppressive. Those that receive the flu vaccine have a 36% higher risk of contracting coronavirus. Let's go to Science Direct. We know that the flu vaccines are pretty much useless. They have a low efficacy rate, but that's all they got. And they're making it sound like you're rock solid, bulletproof, protected against the flu if you get the flu vaccine. But this study demonstrates that it actually makes you more susceptible to the flu, because every time you get a vaccine, it's going to be immunosuppressive. It's going to make your immune system weaker and set you up more for catching a virus such as the coronavirus. So the third thing, conventional approach to treating COVID-19 performed in the hospitals can increase a patient's chance of getting pneumonia, which can lead to death. So those that are in have severe cases of COVID-19, they go to the hospital, they first get on oxygen therapy, and then they go to the next step and do a non-invasive ventilation. And if that fails, then they move on to invasive mechanical ventilation. Now, we see here from the stats that this is from the CDC, ventilators can be life-saving, but they can also increase the patient's chance of getting pneumonia by making it easier for germs to get into the patient's lungs. Here we see a study that 86% of nosocomial pneumonias were associated with mechanical ventilation and are termed ventilator-associated pneumonia. What can we learn from the flu as far as the cause of death? A lot of times when people get the flu, the cause of death is at least a secondary viral pneumonia or bacterial pneumonia, which can lead to sepsis. So you don't want to get pneumonia when you have the flu or COVID-19. We see that with COVID-19. We see bacterial and viral pneumonia can also lead to sepsis and death. Well, what can we learn from the Spanish flu back in 1918? most of those people died from bacterial infections. The overcrowding, the bad ventilation. Most of these people died from pneumonia and other complications. Now, back then, if you look at that pandemic, it's estimated that 20 million people died throughout the world, including about 500,000 in the US. Now, that was a major pandemic. What was going on at the time? The air quality was poor. It was in the winter, lack of sunlight. The food quality was poor, and so these people were set up here for death here. So, in summary, what the media is not telling you is that the worldwide test for coronavirus, PCR test, is unreliable, as the CDC admits. It cannot rule out a bacteria or other viruses, and it can't determine for sure the cause of disease. Yet they're banking everything on this test. Secondly, most people that are dying from COVID-19 are severely immunocompromised by their conditions as well as the medications they're on. And thirdly, ventilation therapy in severe cases often leads to pneumonia, which can cause death. So, what's the plan of attack do you need to implement that will protect you and your family? There's so much stuff on the internet that gives you great advice as far as supplements to take. So I'm not going to really go into this too much. I think the main information that I wanted to get across was what I just shared. But let's go through this relatively quickly. You need to know that your body is always exposed to viruses, bacteria, and pathogens. The human microbiome is composed of bacteria, fungi, viruses, and they are the bacteria in your gut are designed to help you, protect you against pathogens. It synthesizes vitamins. It's for immune system development, promotes intestinal angiogenesis, promotes fat storage, creates short-chain fatty acid production by fermenting dietary fiber, modulates the central nervous system. All this is wonderful. So you have this whole microbiome of viruses, bacteria that you're constantly exposed to, and your body is loaded with these. You can't be afraid of viruses and bacteria. Now, you look at your body. There's an estimated 40 trillion bacteria in the human body. Estimated 350 trillion viruses in the human body. Now, it's impossible to try to eradicate viral infections via vaccinations and medications, as you have so many different strains and variation of the viruses, and your body already has them in you already. Your immune system, if it's functioning properly, it's going to be able to handle viruses so that they don't cause you to have a problem. And so you need to understand that viruses pose no threat to a healthy immune system. They're non-living organisms that require a host, and if that host has an intact immune system, the virus can't replicate and cause damage to your body. And you need to realize you're exposed to viruses constantly, and that creates no problem with those that have an intact immune system. The media is making it sound that everybody over 65 is going to die if they get COVID-19. And so this is the part that is really upsetting and bothersome here to us. Now, you need to understand, too, your body's immune system has been equipped to overcome COVID-19. You have mucous membranes, tonsils, lymphatic nodes and vessels, your thymus gland, spleen, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, skin, lungs, and bone marrow, all part of your immune system that protects you against pathogenic viruses. You're exposed to these viruses, again, all the time, and your immune system has been protecting you from the day that you were born, from the time you were a toddler to your childhood, to when you're a teenager in college and a young adult and in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. Your immune system protects you all your life. As you get older, your immune system is not as efficient as it used to be. That doesn't mean, though, that if you get exposed to COVID-19, you're going to die. And the more that you invest in your health, the more that you protect and strengthen your immune system, the more that it'll protect you. Understand that the human body has an amazing ability to fight off against pathogenic viruses, and this is the message that I want to get across. The answer is not, being self-contained in your house and not touching anybody or seeing anybody or staying away from anybody. Now, if there's people that are immunocompromised that are in that category where it affects, yes, stay away from them. Yes, wash your hands. Yes, all these things are good measures, but you can't live in fear, worrying about touching anything, walking around with gloves and a mask everywhere you go, thinking that you're going to kill somebody or get killed if you're exposed to, or there's a transmission of a virus. It just, you can't live in fear like that. Now, and this is what the media has caused, and this is why people are in panic. I just want you to know that your immune system has the ability to fight these viruses off, but you got to protect and strengthen your immune system. So what I want to do now is give you top 10 things you can do to protect and strengthen your immune system. There's so much stuff on the internet. I'm just going to blow through this quickly. But most of you know already, you have to expose yourself to natural sunlight and fresh air. The vitamin D is amazing for protecting your immune system, for protecting you against cancer. And we know that most of the COVID-19 outbreaks are less in warmer climates. We see in Wuhan, China, which is cold, and Washington was cold, less sun, it was more problematic there. But in countries like Malaysia, Singapore, the outbreaks were a lot less. Being in here in Southern California, when the sun comes out, get out as much as you can, get the fresh air. There's that study in the Spanish flu back in 1918 where people that were those that were sick went outside and got fresh air and sunlight recovered much better, and there was less fatality and mortality rate than those that stayed indoors and were in closed quarters. So the fresh air and sunlight, even the air, has a disinfecting effect to it. So except when they spray a bunch of chemtrails, and that affects things. But if you just get the fresh air, get the sunlight, that's going to be really beneficial and helpful for your immune system. Secondly, you want to reduce your exposures to EMFs. Now, this is, like I mentioned before, I think this COVID-19. We all know that EMFs affect the immune system. Here we see in this map here on the bottom right, we see all the areas where COVID-19, where the major outbreaks are. Now look, this is the same areas where most of the 5G has been installed and placed in. Look at that. It's almost identical if you overlap them on top of another. And this is why these areas where there's high 5G, you're going to be more susceptible to cellular disruption. And so what can you do to reduce your EMFs? Unplug your Wi-Fi router at night, charge your cell phone in another room, keep it on airplane mode, unplug all your electrical and wireless devices from your room, including your electric blankets, baby monitors, alarm clocks, wireless telephone bases. We even have in our room, we can shut off the electricity to your room. All this is going to be beneficial to reduce your EMF exposure. But be careful of that 5G. And I just predict they're going to be trying to install it in schools, since schools are going to be closed down and everybody's got to do things remotely. And so this is just a ploy from the powers above that are again affecting our overall health. Now, again, it goes back to population control, Bill Gates, and the whole that whole system that is trying to take us down and reduce and thin out the herd. Anyway, number 3, stay active, keep busy, be productive. At this time, you may not be able to go to work, but don't sit there and watch the news all day. Be always using your mind. Be productive. That's going to be helpful for strengthening your immune system. Exercise. We all know that exercise is great for the immune system. The lymphatic system is dependent upon exercise to mobilize white blood cells, so make sure you stay active. You can also exercise and strengthen your lungs daily. Take a deep breath in through your nose for a count of 5. Breathe out for a count of 5. During times of fear, we stop breathing. So, and every time you start to feel fearful or stress, you just kind of hold your breath. So make sure you breathe during this time. You also, number 4, eat immune boosting foods and eliminate inflammatory foods. Here are the foods that are inflammatory that you want to stay away from in regards to weakening the immune system: gluten, dairy, refined carbs, and sugar. Viruses feed off that. Fried foods, toxic. Alcohol, sugar, toxic. Caffeinated beverages. Understand, if you are going to have caffeinated beverages, make sure you drink lots of water to counteract the diuretic effect. Watch out for the GMO foods your body can't process. You can get we know that vitamin D, which as far as what you want to eat, vitamin D is get it through the sun, but you can also get it through salmon, sardines, egg yolk. It's great for your immune system. Zinc is fabulous as a supplement or in foods. We know that new drug, chloroquine, it's not a new drug, it's the antimalarial, it's been there for a long time. Chloroquine for antimalarial is working great. Now, interestingly enough, I just heard recently that they're trying to prevent the use of chloroquine for COVID-19, even though it's working great. And guess why? Because this is interfering with the whole the plan for getting out this wonderful new vaccine that's going to save the day for COVID-19. Anyway, zinc that we found that chloroquine is a zinc ionophore, helps get zinc into the system, which helps the immune system. So vitamin C, sauerkraut, citrus. I like to eat a lemon a day. Eat the whole lemon, just eat the peel and all. It's great for vitamin C. You get a live source of it. It's cleansing. It's awesome. Focus on healthy fats: olive oil, avocado, coconut oil, wild Alaskan salmon, sardines, other immune boosting foods. Make sure you have lots of your vegetables. Tons of nutrients, the selenium, the minerals to help your body with the building blocks to fight against, to boost your immune system, which fights against the virus. What can you do for proper supplementation? There's a ton of stuff out there already in regards to supplements. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this. There's some news. They're saying, hey, elderberry causes increased cytokines. You don't want to take that for the COVID-19. Baloney. Elderberry is awesome. It's great. Anytime you see this mainstream media trying to poo-poo a natural supplement or herb or some type of natural remedy, beware, because it's in competition with their pharmaceuticals or their miracle vaccine that they're going to use to help save the day. But elderberry is awesome. Silver is really great too. I love the essential oils, oregano, clove, on guard, melaleuca, tea tree, lemon. Sometimes just so many of the oils have antiviral, antibacterial properties. I like doTERRA, but you can also use Young Living, or there's other companies that are beneficial. But this is a great product that I love for my patients. The Nucleomune, you can probably get it on Amazon. 5 tablets 3 times a day, 5 capsules 3 times a day. When you start to feel like you're getting sick, this is money. It's awesome. You catch it early enough, it'll knock it out before you start to get sick. Okay, number 7, process your emotions. Don't bottle up your emotions. Process things. You hold things in. It often lowers your immune system. Think about every time you've gotten sick. It's usually been as a result of you not processing your emotions. So pray, journal, talk things out. It's helpful. We use NET at our office to help people. You can use emotional freedom technique. You can talk with a counselor. Number 8, get adjusted. Oh, so much. Look at all this, all the research on how chiropractic can boost the immune system. It's awesome for boosting up the immune system. 200% greater immune competence than those without. It's awesome. It's here's what happened back in the Spanish flu. This would put chiropractic on the map. This is not a double-blind study that as far as research is concerned. But there's enough evidence here to show that those that were under chiropractic care back in the Spanish flu time, they had a lot less deaths. And this is what kind of brought into seeing these results validated for chiropractors getting licensure, because they saw that the death rate was so much lower with those that were getting adjusted. Once again, goes back to boosting the immune system. That's what chiropractic does. You have your chiropractor, make sure you get adjusted during this time, stay healthy, keep your immune system strong. Powerful, powerful. Now, number 9, get adequate sleep. Studies show not getting enough sleep, man, it wipes out the immune system. You want to get at least 7 hours. The less sleep you get, the more likelihood you're going to be set up for a viral infection. So during this time, make sure you're getting enough rest and sleep. That's when your body rejuvenates and recharges itself, including the immune system. Lastly, limit your media. Limit the media. The media blows things out. They make estimations. They make anticipation. These many people are going to die. For example, when this first came out, we saw all the predictions that Ebola, SARS, MERS, all the millions of people that people were going to die from. And then when it was all said and done, we saw the reality of how few died. But you're seeing Google taking those stats off now. Those were on a couple of weeks ago, but now, now we see that they are censoring. You got to be careful for Google. They'll censor things that don't match with what they're trying to do in regards to agenda. And they said back in the Guardian here, it says that the global influenza was, as far as the bird flu, is going to kill 150 million people. And the reality is, when the death toll was in the low hundreds and the scare totally fizzled out, again, media has a wonderful way of hyping things up and making you believe something that's not true. So let's get back to the 10 steps to a healthy immune system. Here it is in a nutshell. Regular sunshine and fresh air. Reduce your EMF exposure. Stay active, exercise, eat immune boosting foods, eliminate inflammatory foods, proper supplementation, process your emotions, get adjusted, sleep minimum of 7 hours a night, and limit your media intake. Take a picture of that. Put it on your refrigerator. This is a good step, good plan for a healthy immune system. So what have you learned today? COVID-19 lasts longer on surfaces, but is less fatal than previous epidemics and pandemics. And not only less fatal, the symptoms are less. COVID-19 has a 99% recovery rate in the U.S., and a 1% fatality rates are often with patients taking immunosuppressive drugs. And COVID-19 can easily be overcome by patients with healthy immune system. You must understand this one thing. You have the potential to overcome any pathogen that comes your way, including COVID-19, by having the right mindset and keeping your immune system functioning at full strength. How can you make this happen? You got to get in the right mindset. You're not a helpless victim. You don't have to live in fear. You don't have to react and wait for the government to save the day with some wonderful vaccine that's going to protect you from your COVID-19. You already have the protection inside you in regards to your immune system. You're a hope-filled victor instead of a helpless victim when you have this kind of mindset. Understand your body has an amazing ability to overcome viruses, so you should live without any fear. Apply the 10 steps to a healthy immune system that'll help boost your immune system, and we don't have to live in fear of viruses and germs. We're exposed to them all the time. So I hope this webinar has been helpful. I hope it's been encouraging. Enjoy it while you can. If I'm just concerned that YouTube, when they see that I'm not promoting what they're saying in the news, they're going to remove this. So enjoy it while you can. I hope it's been beneficial, and I hope it gives you confidence and helps take away some of the fear that the media is creating. This is Dr. Derek Taylor signing off, and God bless you. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.